So folding phones, tiny phones, flipping phones. There's so many different Android phones that have really innovated a lot over the past couple of years to improve in every aspect. And yet, on the other side of the aisle, the iPhone 14 looks a lot like the iPhone 13, which looks basically the same as the iPhone 12, which barely looks different from the iPhone 11. And yet, Apple absolutely dominates the US phone market, with nearly every American teen saying their next phone is going to be an iPhone. And in the dating world as well, people are saying they prefer to date somebody who has blue messages. So there's this massive mounting social pressure to get an iPhone, which obviously doesn't encourage Apple to change the design of the phone. And I think we can be pretty positive the iPhone 15 is gonna look a lot like this thing right here. But what it does do is create a lot of pressure for Android to innovate, desperately fighting to stand out and gain some market share, which got me thinking, if you kind of extend this trend here of Android innovating more and more every single year, and the iPhone's not really changing much, you would theoretically eventually get to a point where Androids are undeniably better than iPhones. So that brought up the question, has the complacency of the iPhone design allowed Android to surpass iPhones? And to answer that question, I have 4 of the most interesting and innovative Android phones that I want to talk about and compare to my iPhone 14 Pro to see what's actually different between them and how far ahead or behind they actually are. Each one is very, very different, but let's get right into the first one, and I'll talk about some of the highlights of each of them. Starting off with the Nothin Phone 2. You might have seen this one, kind of causing a lot of stir on the internet. This thing is a very different looking phone. It's $599 despite being a direct competitor to the $799 iPhone 14. On the back, it looks like a cool transparent design, but there's actually more to this. This has what Nothin is calling glyphs, which gives you this cool light up design all the way around the back that is not only great for ringtones and notifications, but it's also functional as well. So if you have a timer, it'll kind of count down. I think Uber is gonna have a widget there as well. I haven't tried that yet, but you have a lot of cool things you could do with the lighting on the back. And I know for a fact there are a lot of iPhone users who think this is cool because I've seen skins for iPhones that people use that are meant to look like the Nothin phone. When we flip over to the front, you'll see there's a much, much smaller camera cutout because instead, this has an in-display fingerprint reader. So you can just touch your finger on the bottom of the screen. The UI then is wildly customizable. And this brand, Nothin, has always been all about making that unique. Now you could customize it and make it look like every other Android phone, but having that unique UI with like the dot matrix kind of look, I think looks really cool. This also has faster charging, 45 watts versus 20 watts, but some Android phones charge much, much faster, like 120 watts. They go from 0 to 100% in 20 minutes or less. And before we get into the next phone, which is wildly different, this kind of summarizing is great for tech enthusiasts. It's a regular phone. It's like an everyday iPhone, but it has cool little features and quirks like the lighting on the back and the customizable UI and things that make you feel more like you're part of the design process. Like I think it was meant to look a little bit more like a prototype, but function more like a flagship. Okay, so the Nothin Phone 2 feels similar to an iPhone with its own flavors and quirks, but the next one is completely different. This is the flipping phone. There's really 2 big ones on the market right now. There's the Motorola Razr and there's the Galaxy Z Flip 5, which I have right here. This is just such a fun style. When you open it up, it looks and feels pretty much exactly like a regular candy bar style phone. With that hinge, you unlock a lot of new use cases, and also it's just a really cool style. Like it's a really cool thing to have. Anybody who has a regular phone, like it's hard to deny that a folding display like this just feels more futuristic. And in addition, you get a lot of cool features, like I said. So one, when you're done with a phone call, you can just close your phone. On the front, we have a front display that has a lot of different widgets. You could play little games on here. It could show you the weather at a glance. You could do a lot without distracting you with like TikTok and actually doing things like that. So you could be more focused by really requiring that opening of a phone before you can use stuff. It's also great for using the camera. You can preview photos on the front. Like if I'm taking a photo of somebody, they can see themselves on the display there. I could also prop it up and take selfies. I could use this as a tripod to prop it up for like the flashlight if you're working on something, or to prop it up and use it for like astrophotography to take a photo of the stars. And probably the big one is a lot of women's clothing doesn't really have big pockets. So even though this is thicker when you fold it, it's a smaller profile, so shallower pockets. Like this is really cool. And it's actually been one of the best selling folding phones in the past year. This next one, however, does a lot more. This is the Samsung Galaxy Fold 5, and comparing it to the iPhone, they're just completely different devices. The Galaxy Fold 5 is really focused a lot more on productivity with different features like, for example, Samsung DeX. If I plug this into a TV or a monitor or a projector, this will suddenly turn into a desktop computer. So I can have a full desktop interface on that display. I can connect a mouse, I can connect a keyboard, and I can get work done in a hotel room or anywhere you want. This also has Samsung's iconic S Pen. So when you open this and you have kind of a larger tablet-y phone, you can do handwritten notes, you can draw things, you can sign documents. You have a lot of functionality. And I mean, obviously the larger display is great for just bigger apps in general. So like Google Maps, if you're driving, you just have a giant map there. You can have Calendar, you can have Gmail where you have the emails on the left and then the actual message itself on the right. Or if you want to have two apps, split screen multitasking is also really powerful. I'll talk about another folding phone in a minute that might do it a little bit better, but regardless, like this is something that you can't really do on iPhones. It's definitely way, way more expensive though, so I'm not gonna say that it's a fair comparison between this and the iPhone. Like it's almost double the price. It is double the price of some iPhones, but you have more cool features as well, like reverse wireless charging. You could also charge my iPhone on the back of this phone, like things that pretty much every Android phone has, but Apple hasn't yet added that. But it's not obviously perfect. Like the aspect ratio in here is a little bit awkward on the front. Like I've never really used this phone that much because it's so skinny on the front. And then phone number 4. This is kind of two phones, but I want to include them both because this is the one that, even though the first 3 were really cool and really innovative phones, this is the one that I see the most people switching from iPhone over to this. And I've had like my wife switch from iPhone. She was using an iPhone for many, many years, and I've had a lot of Android phones. This was the first time she actually wanted to switch. I have other friends who consistently say if I ever switch from iPhone, it would be to a Pixel. So the 2 Pixel phones I want to show here is one, the Pixel 7 Pro, which I actually did use for the entire past year, and then the second one is the Google Pixel Fold. So starting off, Google Pixels have long been like the iPhone of Androids. It's a smooth interface, it's simple like an iPhone, it's easy to convert, like it's just a nice, easy experience, which is why I've personally been using them a lot. But you're getting some benefits of the Google Pixel, like the camera does a better job, like a much better job from my experience. You also have some cool Pixel features like call screening. You have Now Playing, so if a song's stuck in your head from the stadium or the event or the mall or wherever you were earlier, you can see exactly what that song was. You have Hold for Me if you're calling like the IRS, for example, Magic Eraser to remove objects from a photo, and a lot of other things. So that can be done on the Pixel 7 Pro or on the Pixel Fold. But the Pixel Fold, like I said, is arguably a better foldable, at least in my opinion, compared to the previous ones. The Pixel Fold has a better aspect ratio. It feels like a regular phone, and you can use it like a regular phone, but when you want to have that big display, you can open it up and have a giant browser. You can have a giant map. You can have 2 side-by-side apps and just be more productive, or if you have bad vision, you can see things better. Like there's a lot of cool features that you don't realize you would really even use this for until you start using a folding phone. But that, like, yeah, this is all innovative, but iPhones have a network effect, a really known reliability, great video capabilities, and a robust app store. So I personally switch every year to make sure that I'm never biased. I had an iPhone in 2022. 2023, I've been using an Android all year, specifically a Pixel, and right now I use the Pixel Fold. But iOS, like I want to clarify, it's great. And for many people, the iPhone should absolutely be your next phone. There's nothing wrong with that. But this pressure of everybody using iOS and fewer people using Androids has created a really strong trend of innovation for Androids. And I'm personally a big fan of that. I think we get a lot of really cool devices out of this. And unfortunately, it seems that we are getting a little bit of complacency with the iPhone. Like, it's still a great device, but why bother changing anything? There's no pressure for them to change anything. But I would be lying if I said there weren't features on the iPhone that I wish Androids had. And I'm not talking about AirDrop and iMessage, like all of that. There is that on Android, right? But it's other features like continuity camera. If I'm on a video call, like Zoom or whatever, on my iMac, I could just put my iPhone above and have the best webcam quality imaginable. Additionally, MagSafe on the back. Apple added that several years ago, and Android hasn't answered that. I think that's probably the best iPhone feature out there. Or the third one, how could we forget the SOS feature that uses satellites? I know Qualcomm's working on this and it's coming soon, but at least for now, if I'm going on a hike way deep in like, I don't know, Death Valley or something and I don't have service, you better bet I'm bringing this iPhone in case anything happens. But I would love to hear from you if you could just do me a favor and just go down and leave a comment. Let me know if you think that iOS is ever going to lose its market share to Android, or if this trend is going to continue and completely choke out Android, at least in the United States. Thanks for watching the video this long. Hopefully that means you enjoyed it. If you did, I really recommend watching this video next. I think it's going to be one that makes a lot of sense for you. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. I have a lot more videos coming out in the next couple weeks, so I'll see you over there.